Awesome. Well, I tell you what, I know in advance I'm going to want to chit chat all night long about color. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm super excited. And I can't believe it's our last week already of our month of August.
Well, that's
Elements
right.
of art. Yes. So,
What's next? What's next?
oh, well, we'll get to that at the end.
Oh.
Let the suspense build a little bit. But yes, just to give you an overview or a plan for tonight, we're going to start with a brief presentation on the element color, overview the homework, so your drawing guide for the next week, 5 days. Then we're going to go ahead and get into drawing. So we're going to get a little creative with the color wheel. I just went ahead and muted everybody so I can jump on into the presentation. But of course, if you have any comments or questions throughout the call, I should be able to see you if you're waving or if you send a little comment in the chat area. So you have those options. Yes, Judith, I see you.
Is that what you're going to do now, is the color wheel?
We aren't, first we're going to do a presentation on color. We are going to do some color wheel drawing a little later on.
Should I go get my color wheel or not?
I have lots of color wheels I'm going to pop up on the screen if that's okay.
Okay. All right.
I think we should be all right. And yeah, so let's dive in to everybody's favorite element of art, color. All righty. So, here we go. So whenever we're thinking about color, you may have seen some version of this color wheel before. This is sort of a flower version of it. And I hope you can see we have the 3 primary colors here written in primary: red, yellow, and blue. And those are the 3 colors that we use to make every other color. It just takes a little bit of a mixture for a secondary color. So 2 primaries mixed together makes a secondary. 1 + 1 = 2 is how I remember that. And then if you mix a secondary and a primary, you can think of that as 2 + 1 = 3, and you get a tertiary color. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this. I'm hoping you might have seen a color wheel before. And one thing that's interesting to note is that if you're ever working with a pigment, this is a little bit more applicable with paint than it is with a colored pencil, for example. Then if you mix all of your colors together, then you'll actually neutralize them and you'll end up with a black. So that's how we get black if you're trying to mix a black. And that term neutral, to neutralize the colors, that also occurs by mixing colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So if you're ever looking for a neutral tone, and of course I always think of neutrals as building a wardrobe, you know, you want your blacks and your khakis, your maybe like a brown. Those are the neutral colors that we get by mixing colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. And I'm actually going to move this out of the way here. One of the first color harmonies that I'd like to talk to y'all about, we're going to be going over some of the different ways you can really use color. So this, as you can see, is a more in-depth color wheel, but we're going to be looking at ways that we're going to be applying the color wheel and using it in our artwork. So here, jumping out of the color wheel a little larger, you see a monochromatic color scheme. Now, monochromatic, if you break down the Latin roots, stands for one, mono, and chroma, color, one color. Now, these are very pleasing to the eye because they're only using one color, but a full range of values of that color. So just to look at an example, here you can see sort of a color swatch from a photograph, and this is a monochromatic succulent. It's using the full range of values all the way from darkest black, kind of a greenish black, I suppose, to the very lightest light green. So value and color very much related. You're going to be using the full range of values as they apply to the color that you're using. And so you've got some monochromatic homework coming up this week, and this is the concept here. And who was it? It was Naomi who was telling me earlier this week that Chagall is her favorite. So I was thinking of you. This is a beautiful Chagall painting, The Painter to the Moon. And as you can see, he's only using one color. This is a monochrome, all in blue, and very whimsical. I think I've got another Chagall for you a little later on. Kind of a innocent, naive look. Oh, just really liked that one. So picked that example for a monochrome. And then here are the other color harmonies that we're going to be covering this evening. So give me a thumbs up. I just would love to see you guys. Who has heard of these color, the complementary colors before? Are you familiar with your complementary colors? Thumbs up if you are. Okay, so some people sort of, some people yes, some people no. Awesome, so we've still got a lot to share. So the color wheel is going to be important for us to remember as we go forward, because it's going to help us remember how to choose color harmonies, colors that look especially good together whenever we are composing our image. And the different types of colors that you use will have a different psychological impact. So with complementary colors, they're opposite on the color wheel. So yellow and purple are complementary, blue and orange, of course the Christmas combo, red and green, yellow and blue. Actually, that reminds me of Judy's kitchen we were just admiring earlier. She's got that dark blue and a kind of yellow-orange going on. And red, orange, and blue-green is what they're showing us here. What's interesting about the complementary colors is that the reason that they're so powerful for us is that as human beings, we only have 3 color recepting neurons, I guess, or what are they? Receptors. 3 color receptors in our eyeballs. Not the science teacher, obviously, over here. They're the cones and rods, and the way that they work is that these 3 color receptors are able to pick up the complements. So there's one that's a yellow-purple cone and rod, there's one that's blue-orange, and there's one that's red and green. And with those 3 color recepting guys in our eyeballs, we're able to see all of the colors in the world. So whenever we see the 2 complementary colors next to each other, that is exciting the same cone rod pair in our eyeball, and it actually causes a vibration in your eye. So it will really kind of spark up a reaction because you've got more excitement happening in that single cone rod receptor whenever you're looking at a complementary color. You'll also notice if you ever stare at, say, like you have a bright purple piece of paper and you hold it up to your eyes for a while and you're just staring at it, if you took that bright purple piece of paper away, you would have a yellow after image. It would be the after image in the opposite complementary color. So just a little science nerdiness here. Complementary colors are kind of interesting. So let's see a few. This is a photograph, of course, but such an interesting example of the complements we have. Blue and orange. Pretty striking here. And I don't know if your cones and rods are excited right now, but it's not exactly a pleasing look. You know, it's not something that's going to be harmonious in the sense of let me relax and just stare at this for a while, but this is a bit more of like an in-your-face, like boom, punchy look. So if that's the kind of effect that you want on your viewer, you might choose an intense complementary. However, complementary colors can also be used in a much more soothing, more subdued way. So of course we have Vermeer's The Girl with the Pearl Earring, and I hope you can recognize here the blue and orangey complements. So they're not intense, they're not really slapping you across the eyeballs or anything, but it still is a pleasing color complement choice So it's striking, but it's not taking too much attention away from the subject of the painting here. And a little more Chagall for Naomi. So here, Chagall, who's known for his very dreamlike compositions, has sort of a swirl of different sort of romantic images and animals and scenes. But what really draws our eye whenever there's a blue field are the areas of the complementary color that pop out. So if you're looking to create an emphasis, you can also use complementary color to your advantage by having sort of a large area of perhaps the cooler color and then a little splash of your warmer color. The next color harmony we're going to look at is a triad. Now, the most essential triad that we think of are the primary colors. So whenever you look at your entire circular color wheel, you can see how a triadic color set is creating a triangle in the color wheel. So if you're lucky like Judith, you might even have your own personal color wheel at home. But if you're ever thinking about this could be creating a color scheme for a painting or a drawing or decorating your house, you could think about the triads to create an interesting or striking color harmony. So a couple of famous color triads. This is Botticelli, and it's interesting whenever we look back at the Renaissance versions of the Madonna and Child, there's a tradition of using the primary colors in those paintings. So here we see the blue. The Madonna is traditionally shown in a blue robe, but the angels also have red, and even the Madonna has got some red accents in her outfit. And the yellow comes across more almost in the skin and the golden hair of the angels and the mother and child, but even in the outfit of one of those little guys, we see some yellow. So of course this isn't extremely strict. We see lots of variations in the colors. However, we could still consider this that the artist was purposefully trying to use a triadic primary color color harmony. And perhaps that's because it's the most essential fundamental color harmony. Here's another Renaissance Holy Family painting. This is by Michelangelo. And here we see again the blue, the red, the yellow. Again, it's not strictly only those three colors, but they do pop out. And it's just a very pleasing color harmony that you see over and over again, especially in this particular theme of Renaissance artwork. So even if it's not an over-the-top example of a primary or a color harmony of whatever kind, you'll still be able to note what are the main colors. Are there two or are there three main colors that are popping out to me, and why would the artist choose to use those? And finally, my personal favorite color harmony are the analogous colors. And these are just colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And we just tend to like them. Our eye loves analogous colors. So they create a feeling of balance and natural harmony. So any 3 or 4 colors that are next to each other are considered analogous. Here you see kind of a red, fuchsia, and purple. Here we see the colors of fall. And the analogous colors don't necessarily only have to be all very closely related. So it doesn't only have to be like a yellow, orange, red. Often I think we forget when we consider the analogous colors that you can bridge between the warmer colors. And when I say warm colors, what I mean are colors that are fiery, or, you know, we're thinking of red, orange, and yellow, versus the opposite side of the color wheel, the greens, the blues, and the purples. So I like this example that shows the analogous colors could include a little bit of both. And then here, again, you see a division between the warm and the cool colors. So in the center, of course, we've got our primaries. Next wheel around that are the secondary colors, green, orange, and purple. And then once we get into the outer rings of the color wheel here, You can see each and every little in-between color, the yellow-orange, the blue-green, but basically right in between the, say, yellow and green is where you're going to see the division between the warm and the cool colors. Okay, gosh, I'm really trying to get a lot in tonight. So this is boom, 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 lots of color theory. Honestly, I've always said I could probably teach an entire year on color because it's just so much. But let's dip in. So we typically just tend to use the word color, but another word for color is hue. So if you ever see hue being referred to, they're talking about the color. So hue is the pure color, unmixed, just in its full saturation. Now, once we add white, then it's called a tint. So the color plus white gives you a tint of the color. So if you ever hear someone say, oh, why don't you give that just a little tint of yellow, then what they technically would be saying is add a very high value, bright yellow to that. What you're probably used to hearing about is a shade. We're often told we want to shade our colors. Now, the shade is when you take the hue and add black. So, of course, if you think of a shadow color, it's your hue, often with like a wash of black on top. So, hue plus black, that's your shade. But what is a tone, and how do we use tones? Now, tones are actually wonderful. If you take a pure hue and you add gray, that is what gives you a tone. And these, either a tone or a tint could be considered a pastel color. So you can see how they're both more muted, softer colors. They both have a little bit of white in them because gray, of course, is a mixture of black and white. So tones are lovely, softer colors. If you only use the pure color all the time, it can be jarring to the eyes. That's when we start to feel that colors clash. So I imagine if you're ever choosing color in your life, whether it be getting dressed or decorating your home, you know you don't want to walk around in a room where your eyes have to see these intense bright colors all the time everywhere. So we tend to tint and tone to soften the effect on the eyes. Now, another way of looking at color is to think of where the colors sit on the value scale. And when you're composing an entire painting or composition, you get to decide as an artist whether you want to create a high key or a low key painting or composition. So high key is basically in the high value ranges. That would be 1 through 4. This is going to be a brighter, whiter, lighter painting or drawing. So down at the bottom there you see Van Gogh's Straw Bales, where there's light streaming in. It feels like a very bright, sunny day. That is a high key painting, very much on the high register of the value scale. Whereas on the left there, you see a low-key painting. So low-key simply means that the majority of the painting is dark. It's going to be on the 6 through 9 scale of the value range. And I'm just referring to the numbers here that you see on the value scale on the presentation here. So this, of course, reflects in the mood. If you're looking to create something a bit more somber and perhaps thoughtful, you might want a low-key painting. The high-key paintings tend to feel more light and bright and cheerful, perhaps. So just a little something to think about. Or if you ever hear those phrases, I want you to know what they mean. So high-key, low-key, it's used in photography. It's used in painting, drawing, all the good stuff. Okay. So I wanted to jump into a couple art historical examples, and this is Judith killing Holofernes. Holofernes. You know, I don't know how to say his name. Thank you. What was that, Diane? Or
You were right. Holofernes.
Okay, great. Holofernes. Of course, we've got two Judys, so I wanted to make sure we had a representation of that. But also, I'm going to show you a comparison. Here, we have a male artist doing this painting. And I hope you notice from the darkness, from the moody background, that this is a low-key painting. And Caravaggio is one of the artists who is very well known for this particular effect. Before he came around, people were, they had some intense shading, but he really turned the lights down and was known for these beautifully lit, almost like a spotlight on the main action of the scene with intense darks in the background, which really made things pop out. So here we see Judith, and she is coming in to murder the king, who is going to try and kill all of her people. So she's doing her duty. But one thing I'd like you to notice is just how, I don't know, like reluctant almost that she is to be doing this murder. She's like, oh, well, I'm getting my hands dirty, but she's a little bit like feminine in the weak and hesitant sort of way. And next I'm going to show you the same painting, but painted by a female artist, Artemisia Gentileschi. So this is, again, Judith and Holofernes, Judith beheading Holofernes, but very different vibe, very different way that the woman is portrayed in this painting. So one story that I think is absolutely fascinating here is Artemisia actually painted herself into this painting. So it's not just any Judith. That is Artemisia Gentileschi painting herself as Judith, murdering Holofernes. And as you can see, she's not some hesitant young maiden, worried. She's using her muscle. She's in there. She's making sure this guy dies to save her people. What's a really fascinating art historical note, however, is that she also chose to paint in someone as Holofernes. And the face that she chose was her art teacher, who she studied under, her mentor, who she successfully tried and had committed to jail for her rape. So this is not just any Judith, taking over, being a strong woman. This is a female painter who you can only imagine what it must have been like back in the Renaissance times to be a woman. It was very difficult to become known as a painter, but not only was she one of the very few celebrated, if not very well heard of, masters of her time, but she was able to use her artwork and her painting in this particular example as a almost therapeutical and very widely published account of her bringing justice to her own life. So this is one of my favorites, and of course an effective example of a low-key painting. So just wanted to show you guys that. And I'll have to post this in the group. We're not going to go super into the psychology behind colors, but I'm sure you're aware, because of your own personal reactions to color. Color is one of the most just immediately effective emotional connections you might have to a painting. And here we just have lots of different examples, so you're welcome to take your time to read that. I do want to tell you one story while you kind of check out the different words, though, about the color blue. So everywhere in the world, the color blue tends to show trust, calm. It tends to be a very relaxing, soothing color. But only in Italy does blue raise the heart rate of men whenever they see the color blue. And there were some scientists who were looking around. I think Diane already knows why. So some scientists were trying to figure out the psychology of color and why do we have these reactions. And when they saw the Italian men, they just had to figure out what's going on. So they compared the men to the women. they felt very calmed by blue. You know, they thought of it as the color of the Virgin Mary's robe, and it's a very Catholic country. So what is it about the color blue? It's the Italian soccer team colors. So out of the entire world, only the Italian men see blue and they get all worked up because, of course, they're avid football fans. So just wanted to share that little story, and I hope y'all have some fun playing around with it. Different psychological elements of color as you go through our exercises this week. Alrighty, so I tried not to go too into detail, but any questions or thoughts or anything about the different color harmonies that we looked at before we move on?
I have a question.
Yeah. Hey, Linda.
Hi. I was just wondering on those colors and the psychological definitions, do they tend to cross-culturally, or do you know if that they're basically for the U.S.?
I'm guessing that particular image I showed you was specifically for the U.S. because there's a huge difference across cultures.
Is there?
Yes. So if you think about, I think one of the classic examples is the white wedding dress in the States. You think of purity and chastity and all of that. Whereas in other cultures, they use black wedding dresses, and white is considered unlucky. That's just the first example that comes to mind, but absolutely there are differences. I think there are also some interesting, things that are the same across different cultures. Like I believe that green tends to generally signify growth and prosperity in nature, but I am no expert on the psychology of colors. But that's a great question. Something worth looking into.
Yeah.
So I'm not real.
Oh, Judith, go ahead, and then Diane.
I'm not really good with color, as you know, and I feel stressed that I have to memorize all of this so I can get better with color. So.
I'm glad you brought that up because, first of all, you don't. You absolutely don't. Now, the homework over the week, I'm going to pop it up in a second here, but we are going to be stressing a few different color harmonies and complements that are going to be useful for you. But I hope you can think of these more as just useful vocabulary words to use if you are looking at other people's artwork, but you'd be fine just knowing that probably the three color harmonies that we went over in the beginning. So whenever we look at the homework, you'll see a little bit more. But things like high key versus low key, you really you'll be fine for years without ever needing to know that. It's more about how it looks for you. Diane, you had a question or a comment?
I was going to say that I've been in this business for years trying to learn how to paint.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, I don't know whether it was you, but somebody told me on the color wheel that yellow is absolutely the hottest color. And for years, I had held yellow as neutral and underpainted with yellow as if it were beige, and couldn't figure out why nothing worked.
Interesting.
Why I couldn't get the colors to sync up. And once I got that, I had this huge breakthrough on color. So I just turned one click more and said, yellow is the hottest. It is, that's it.
It's a warm color. That's interesting. I wasn't the person to tell you that because I hadn't heard that before. But what strikes me about that story is just how important it is to consider if you're layering one color on top of the other to remember that underneath color really will show through. So sometimes people paint and they think, I'll just paint over that and pretend like I didn't do it. You can get away with that a little bit, but at the same time, there is a sort of glow, and it will affect the next color that you put on, especially if you're using a translucent glaze or.
Yeah, that's part of the deal on glaze. You want it to be translucent. You don't want it gray and murky. And so these are new things. This is like a whole new world for me. I'm waiting to get back to the board.
Yeah.
Very
Awesome.
excited. Very
Cool.
excited.
We'll keep you drawing this week, that's for sure. Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and jump into the homework. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the screen. This is already posted in the group for you to check out at your leisure. I know. It's the most colorful thing so far. Oh, look at all these smiles. I can just see how color already brightens up everybody's day. Okay, so day number 1, we're going to be looking at monochromes. And this particular week, it really struck me how we're taking all of the different elements of art that we've been talking about this whole month and putting it all together. So you're really going to see all the different elements in this week's challenge. So first, you get to choose. You can choose any of these landscapes. Honestly, in 30 minutes, you probably are only going to do one of these, or you're absolutely welcome to come up with one of your own. And this is tying back into value, but we're only using a full value range of one color. So, for example, in the orange example, the second little square from the beginning, we see an orange monochrome from a deep, rich, dark, almost red orange to a more pure medium orange, a little bit lighter, and finally a very high value orange in the way background. And as we talked about in the past, whenever you have colors that get higher and higher value as they go into the distance, it creates that illusion of space, of depth. So I thought that would be a really fun way for us to incorporate our monochromatic color scheme. So I hope y'all have some fun with these and choose any color of your choice, also any medium of your choice. So I personally am going to be using colored pencils for tonight and for probably this whole week. But if you feel very comfortable in watercolor or using pastel or absolutely anything, please do use that. And so, of course, Linda, I'm expecting you'll be using your pastels. So we'll be looking forward to seeing that. Cool. So day number 2 is going to be especially interesting because day 2, we're going to be exploring color relationships. So an interesting thing about color is that you can take the exact same color, but if you have that color with a different color surrounding it, it will give the effect of being some almost like a different color. So here you see that the orange almost looks like, I'm especially seeing the difference between the first square and the second square. That second square of orange seems darker to me because of the very bright yellow background behind it, whereas the red background makes it feel like a more muted or calm orange. These are all the exact same shade of orange, but when you change the color surrounding the color, it creates a different effect for the viewer. Whenever we see the orange and dark purple, especially, that one really jumps out because of the value difference and also the color temperature contrast. So this is something that you'll get to explore and play around with the more you work with color. And I find this especially useful whenever I'm working with trying to decide what background to put on my paintings. So I tend to do lots of portraiture. Portraiture is just my favorite. And I tend to paint people who are somewhere in the orangey range. So either a pale orange or a medium dark, skin tone. Of course, lots of Mexican skin tones being down in San Miguel. So if I'm using an orange, range of color for a person's face, as you can see, the different background that I give them would either, if I chose a dark purple background, that would make that person pop out and really stand out from their background, versus if I chose something closer to the orangey tone, that might not give that sense of depth. It could give a different personality, of a feeling like that particular character that I was drawing had a different mood to them. So color relationships are huge. And on day 2, what I'd like you to do is just fill your page experimenting with these color relationships. So maybe 2 or 3 rows of squares like these, or if you want to use a circle or whatever shape in the middle, that's up to you. And then experiment and see how those look with different color backgrounds. So that's going to be an interesting little experiment for you all. On day number 3, we are combining form and color. So here you see cubes, and I invite you to choose whatever analogous colors you want. So remember, analogous colors are next to each other on the color wheel. So you could choose any range. I like this very first one. We have kind of a blue and green analogous color combo happening. Just remember to think about where your light source is coming in, where you have the highlight giving the brightest color of the cube, and where your shadow would fall. So you can have fun doing cubes. And of course, the rules are always meant to be broken here. So if you feel like doing a sphere or a cone, you do whatever form you like, but cubes are kind of approachable. So those are for you. Day number 4, I think this will be a really fun day. We are going to be doing complementary color citrus. So of course, the citrus is going to be somewhere in the probably orange for oranges, yellow for lemons, green for limes, perhaps some sort of dusty peach color for like a grapefruit, depending on how you want to approach your citrus. And the goal is to have the complementary color behind your citrus color. And I thought these looked just lovely. So of course, yellow and purple are complements. You see that on the far right there. The blue and orange, you can choose whichever shades of these complementary colors that you like. And the second one from the left, I especially like because sometimes we think that complementary colors have to be pure hues. You think of red and green like the Christmas colors, but if it is a complementary color pair like red and green, and you add white to both, so that would be adding a tint, adding that white, right? Then you would end up with a lime green and a kind of a hot pink or a bright pink. Those 2 colors, lime green and pink, are also complementary because they're still that same opposite on the color wheel combination. So it doesn't have to be the intense versions of these colors. It could also be a more mellow version of these colors using sort of the pastel versions of the colors that you're looking at. So that should be fun. And if you happen to have any citrus at your house, it would be wonderful for you to be able to look at those from life and try drawing from life. But if not, then you're welcome to use these examples and just keep it simple. It's sort of like a spoke wheel shape on the inside of the citrus. So it'll be pretty fun and simple. And again, goes back to form, our spherical 3-dimensional forms there. And finally, on our very last day, I wanted to let you guys just go a little wild, and you're welcome to have fun creating your own colorful version of a creative landscape. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see these a little bit better. But this is sort of a different version of the very first monochromatic landscapes that we were looking at. But instead of necessarily sticking to a monochrome or even anything realistic, you can just go crazy. So if you want to add patterns, if you'd like to keep it perhaps something more like a simple wash and just play around with creating a realistic version of having the warmer colors toward the front of the landscape and the cooler colors toward the background. You can do that. I will be posting another link to tons of different examples on Pinterest of different ways you could approach this final landscape assignment. But honestly, anything that is using a broad variety of color, taking everything that you've learned, hopefully from the 4 days that go before that, you should be able to, get in there and do something exciting with your landscapes. So while I have this up, does anybody have any questions about the homework or any particular day?
So
We'll start with Linda and then Naomi.
Okay, I have two questions. On cooler versus warmer colors, is the coolest color considered purple or blue?
You know, it's interesting. I haven't ever heard them compared before as far as like which is the coolest.
I just wondered because they usually use purple for shadows, right, as opposed to blue. So I just wondered if it was supposed to be.
Yes. So purple is a mixture of red and blue, so it's warmer than blue.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess.
And then my second question has to do with tint. So you said that tint is the color plus white, basically. And I know that you're not supposed to mix white, or it turns chalky.
Yes.
So I was wondering, not only on the pan pastels, but it seems to me that on the aqua oils that I used to use, water soluble oils, they also had these things called tints. In this pan pastel, I have a whole bunch of them, and I can look at them and I can see that they're really lighter. So is the point supposed to be that like they've mixed white with the color but have done it in such a way that it's not going to look chalky? Is that supposed to be the point of those? Or
Great question. So yes, so I have seen your pan pastels before, and yes, they have pre-mixed white in already to those colors. So if you wanted to create a tint, since you happen to have that palette, you don't have to add white. It's already been pre-mixed in. So you've got just an insta swipe. So the chalkiness tends to happen whenever people add white too soon in their color composition, and then they want to add another color on top of it, and then they're surprised because they don't want the chalkiness anymore, but they're not able to get rid of that tinted look. So white is a very powerful color. If you lay it down and it's not dry, or in the case of pan pastels, if it's not sealed in some way where it won't mix, it will dilute whatever color you put on top of it. So it's like you lose the control if you put anything mixed with white on top or below another color. So you just have to be careful using white. I'm so glad you brought that up because it does tend to mix in, and a lot of people will wait till the very end of a painting to add their white. Of course, unless they're doing watercolor, in which case your paper is the white and you have to just leave the white of the page to create your white. So.
Okay. So that's what it is then that gives the chalky look, as opposed to some kind of optical illusion or something. So like on water-soluble oils, the solution would be to let it dry completely and then add your white at the end, and then it wouldn't have a chalky look, right?
Yes.
Or is there some other trick like mixing the white and a color really well before?
So for oils in particular, there's a strict rule, and it's for exactly the reason you're bringing up. In oil, we go from dark to light. And if you try to go the opposite direction, it will give you that chalky look. And that's exactly why we go from dark to light in oil. But that's particular to that medium. So it's really whenever you add another color on top of a white or a tint that it would start compromising the color that you might want to have. So you could just let it dry would probably be the best thing to do. Yeah. But keep me posted as you keep playing around with that and experiment. But the best thing for me is just to remember I work very strategically when I'm building up a full painting. So it's going to go from, for example, with oil, I'll go from dark to light. If I was working on one of those cubes, I would start with the darkest colors first and then make my way toward the brighter colors. So I would keep that from happening. So thanks for bringing it up. Naomi, you had a question?
Yes, if I am doing the orange one, and let's say I just have a watercolor, the basic palette that doesn't have a white circle, I guess I'm thinking the elementary school one, it has orange, but it doesn't have white. So I just water it down to make the different gradients. Is that what it is?
Okay, great question. Yes, is the answer. There is no white in watercolor palettes usually. Occasionally you'll find one, but I just wish they wouldn't even sell it that way because it creates that chalky look.
Well, they have it in the tubes, but
yeah,
watercolor, but not on the palette.
Right, so. And really, it's not a true watercolor. It's called like a gouache, or sometimes they'll put in other. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But what I would recommend you do, Naomi, before you get started, is just have a practice value scale, and really, it's just all about the ratio of pigment to water that you use. So the more water, the more high value. And yeah, that'll do that.
Thank you.
Yes, Judith.
If I want to use the fiber tip pens, will I be able to do this with that, or should I stick to the pencils?
So the thing about the pens, they're just black. So if it depends on the look you're,
No, the pens, the ones that you have.
Colored pens. Yes, you could definitely use those. Now, that's a great set.
It's the largest. It was like getting the Crayola big box. It's 50.
Oh la la. Excellent. So yeah, absolutely. Please do use those. One thing about working with markers like that or pens is that your line direction tends to really pop out. And especially with the markers, if they sort of are overlapping, sometimes it's hard to control the saturation, like the two little where the markers overlap each other, you'll get that darker line. So just be aware as you're creating big fields of color, how you can create a nice smooth look to it. But yeah, that would be great. I'll be interested to see how that goes. Diane?
I will say one thing very quick to the watercolor people. John Singer Sargent used white like a gouache at the end of the painting for highlights.
Okay. And he's the painter's painter.
Yes, well, he's where we want to go. So I never could believe he could get the whites to be so perfect. And indeed, he uses white.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah, it makes me feel really good.
Okie dokie. Well, let's go ahead and dive into a little bit of drawing before the end of our call this evening. So I'm going to be using my Prismacolors. I just have kind of a limited set, not the big 50 like Judith. And what I'd love for us to do tonight is a creative color wheel. And actually, I'll pull up the color wheel in a moment here.
Keep on dropping you, sorry.
No worries.
I have to go get my colors.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to challenge you, if you can, to mix your own colors here. Now, if you happen to have an amazing big old set like Judith, you're welcome to just go ahead and choose the exact color, because especially if you're, Judith, if you're working with a marker, that you can't mix your own color. So that's why it's useful to have the full set. So I'll go ahead and pull up the color wheel. But when I say creative color wheel, you are welcome to just go ahead and do the traditional circle and like have different squares of color for each of the different areas of the color wheel. But I was thinking we could do something a little more exciting. So I don't know why, I was thinking for me, I was thinking of doing either flowers or feathers. What do you guys think? Should I do flowers or feathers?
Flower.
Flowers. Okay, that's what I really wanted to do. So we're going to create, let me go ahead and just show you how I'm going to do this before we get started. I'm starting in pencil. I'm starting with a circle, drawn extremely lightly. Probably can barely even see that on the page. And I'll start with some sort of abstracted flower shapes in the 3 primary color spots of my color wheel. So I'm sort of making already that triangle. And these are I just put some random flower shapes, but I've got 3 spots that I'm going to be saving for yellow, red, and blue. So you can do flowers, you can do absolutely any sort of whatever you want to do. I think flowers are kind of just, I've been drawing them from our last homework, so that'll work. In between these, I'm going to do another triad, and I'm just doing a different type of flower here, in between those 3. So now I've got sort of sunflower outlines in between. So now I've got 6 flowers alternating between these kind of 5-pointed flowers and a sunflower sort of look. Those are going to be for the secondary colors. And then in between those, I'm going to put some more sort of general vague flower shapes, and these will be for my tertiary colors. So I'll show you what I've done, and then I'm going to put the big color wheel up on the screen so that you can draw from that.
So you basically are going to have 9 sections.
Yes. So now I look like I've got sort of a wreath of flowers, and I'm going to make this super quick and dirty and start coloring. But as I do that, let me pop the color wheel up here for you so that you can start your own however you like. Here's a good one. So, because I went really lightly with the pencil, I can kind of come back and just fill these in and not worry too much about erasing. And while we are working on this, I'm just going to go ahead and chat a little bit about our next month's drawing challenge. So the plan is that this coming month of September, our drawing challenge is going to be all about the figure. We're going to be doing some figure drawing. And my goal for you is that if you're ever the type of person who has wanted to go to a figure drawing class, but you've thought, oh, how I couldn't go to a figure drawing class. I can only draw a stick figure. That by the end, right? By the end of the class, that you would be able to attend a figure drawing class and feel confident about what you are doing. So we're going to start literally with stick figures. If you know anybody who really thinks that they can't draw, make sure they come to the very first week. It's going to be the first Tuesday in September. And actually, this is going to be a short challenge because we're only going to be able to do 3 weeks. I've got the last week in September I'll be traveling, so I won't get to have the full month, but it'll still be pretty cool. Let me just show you ladies real quick where I'm at so far with our creative color wheel. So kind of quick and dirty. I'm going to come back and add some more details a little later on, but now I've got my primary and secondary colors drawn in. And so these are just the pure colors. Now that I'm going to start doing the flowers that represent my tertiary colors, I'm going to have to blend my colored pencils together to create those in-between colors. So if I want a red-orange, instead of coming in with a lot of pressure, I'm going to come in really lightly with the red, and then I'm going to layer another very light layer of colored pencil orange on top of that, and continue that process of bouncing back and forth between the two.
Can you put the wheel back up?
Yes. Until I find them both. Let me just show you how that looks, and then get that wheel back up for you. So this is a layered combination, starting with a very light red, light orange, and just building that up until eventually I mix the color that I want. Let me get that color wheel back up for you. There we go. While you finish off your color wheels. Also, I wanted to give a little shout out. I'm trying something just a little bit different this coming month, where I'm going to be doing some private online workshop classes, kind of workshops. So these are going to be small group paid workshops, basically exactly what it would look like if you were in a real workshop with me, except online. So I'm going to be doing a portraiture workshop, and that's going to be on September 14th, and I'll be posting more information about that, so you don't have to stop and worry about it right now. But I'll be doing a portraiture workshop. It's going to be a couple hours, starting with the absolute basics of the proportions of the face and all that good stuff, and then going into a bit more detail. Then I'm going to do a colorful cacti workshop. Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Wow.
Where we're going to be. Jessica?
Yeah.
I'm totally lost here. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no.
I have my 3 primary colors.
Okay.
And then I have between them 2 slots between each.
Yes.
And then I don't know where to put the orange, purple, and green.
Let me go back to like the simplest version of the color wheel here.
That would be helpful.
Okay. Well, I don't know if this is that simple. So in between the main triangle of the primaries, look for another triangle of, oh, I know what it is. You said you have.
Okay, I'm not going to do it. Just let everyone else do it. I can't do this.
Yeah, it sounds like you have the wrong number of.
You also lost me. This is
Oh,
Judy.
no. Hey, Judy, yes. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry.
Well, for one thing, in some of them, the blue primary is on the right, and some of them is on the left. Does that matter?
Absolutely not. It's all about how they relate to each other. So.
And and they look completely different when it's round, when it's the other one that you showed with all the different geometrics. They look totally different to me, not related at all. And of course, they are related. So,
right,
I'm lost.
Gotcha. Okay, so maybe I can post a little bit more.
It keeps changing. I mean, sometimes it's on the right, sometimes it's on the left.
Yeah,
it's round,
and I'm so glad you brought that up, because the essential thing to remember really comes from where you see the triadic color wheel here. You see that triangle? If you ever begin any color wheel ever, so any color wheel ever always starts with your primary color triad. So it doesn't matter where you put these 3 primary colors, and you're going to see them always in different organizations, because it's really about how they relate to each other, not about what direction they happen to be laid out in. So if you have your triad of the 3 primary colors here, whenever we place the secondary colors, we always place them in the way that they would be mixed if this was real paint and you were mixing them on the wheel. So what I mean by that is if you have a blue at the bottom left corner and you have the yellow at the top, what do you get when you mix blue plus yellow? You always get green, always. So even if I would switch the red and the blue in this particular color wheel, then you're still going to put the green in between the yellow and the blue. So if you always start with your primary colors and then have another triad, another triangle between the secondary colors, then everything should sort itself out.
Well, this simple one that you now have in front of us with the triad, that looks like how I should start.
Yes, I'll leave this up.
It's simple.
Yes. And yeah, I never sure quite. Yeah.
They got too complicated too fast.
Thanks for that feedback. And I was wondering tonight too. I was like, well, sometimes when I most often get the fact that when I do the color wheel lesson, it's too basic. So I was trying to make it a little more exciting for you guys tonight, but I overdid it.
It's okay.
So
I'm ready to show.
You're ready to show? Okay.
Not too creative.
Ooh.
But I got crayons. That's the best art supply I got.
Awesome. Yeah, and so those are kind of like little spires of the colors, huh?
I was going to do a stained glass window and it went out of control. But there's the red, there's the orange, there's the red and orange, there's the orange, there's the yellow, there's the yellow-orange.
Perfect. Blue. Nice. Love it. Very creative.
Can I show mine?
Yes,
let me see. I can't see anything but the triadic thing.
Well, yeah. I'm going to pop the people back up, everybody, but I will post a picture of just the color wheel. Very nice, Naomi. Love it.
But I don't know what else do I do now?
So what you would do next is you would do your tertiary colors. So that would be, you would take the 6 flowers you have now and you would add one more flower in between each one. And
like one here, and one.
Exactly.
3 more.
3 more.
Okay.
No, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more.
Between the secondary and the primary, like if I put it right here, what colors do I need here?
So you would take, that's colored pencil you're using?
And yes.
Okay. So you would take,
what I do here?
You would take the green color and the yellow
this
color.
Right here?
And you're going to need to literally add them together by lightly doing one layer of a very light yellow and then adding another layer of a light green and let them blend together.
Green.
But the 2 colors that you've used, but when I say light, I just mean less pressure. So you're not bearing down hard the way you did.
So I need to pick the green color though, not because I did this green with blue and yellow. So I don't.
Oh, you mixed your own green. Okay. Well, basically,
wasn't I supposed to do that? I don't know. I thought that was I supposed to do.
That's advanced. Yeah, you did great. If you are comfortable doing that, then what you would do this time is you would add just a little teeny tiny bit of blue and almost all yellow.
More yellow.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
that will be right. So I need 3 more flowers then.
6
more. Or 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here.
Exactly.
Okay. I get you. I got it.
So instead of you'd have a red orange, you'll have a purple red, all of those in between colors. Anybody else have something to show off? Yet? Not yet. Ooh, let's see. Let me pull you up here. Jennifer.
Nice.
Oh, beautiful. And you're working with watercolor.
Wow. Oh, nice.
Oh, very nice.
I have a lot of choices in colors, but I'm mixing them and some not.
Excellent. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. If you've got those 3 primaries, technically that's all they say you need. Well, I'm going to pop mine up again just to kind of show you what's ended up with.
Nice. Oh.
So
wow.
I went ahead and outlined the primary. I'm going to actually make a triangle here so y'all can see even better what I'm talking about. Okay, so these are my primary colors, the red, yellow, and blue. And that's the very first thing I did was I started with my very lightly drawn pencil circle. And I started with a flower shape for my 3 primary colors. And then I added another sort of upside down triangle for the secondary colors, which are what you get: blue plus red equals purple. Yellow and blue make green. Red and yellow make orange. So these are the secondary colors here. And then all of these colors in the back that are sort of just lighter, those are a mixture of the 2 colors on either side of them. So here's a red-orange flower, a purple-red flower, a blue-purple flower, a blue-green flower, a green-yellow flower, and a yellow-orange flower. So the color wheel. If you've got one of your own to reference, even better. Alrighty. Well, thanks for sticking with me for that. Sorry that ended up being a little more complicated than I had anticipated. But you're definitely going to get to know these colors well over the rest of the week. So please do message me if you're getting frustrated. And if I'm getting a lot of people with the same question, I might even just create a new video or publish some more info for you guys. Maybe I'll just add a little video on the color wheel. Something cute from YouTube. See what I can find.
Okay, so today's our last class then, right?
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Yes.
No. I mean, the degrees. When does portrait start? Or when does figure start?
So figure drawing, that's going to be 1 week from now. So I would love it if everybody is able to come back. Of course, Judith is going to be in China on the other side of the world. Lucky.
Bye.
But we will. Yeah, we'll still be posting the recordings. So if you're stuck in an airport and you need some entertainment, you can pull up our videos and do a little drawing. So yeah, so this very next Saturday, what am I talking about? This next Tuesday on September the 3rd is when we begin. Same time, 7 o'clock Central Time. And I would love it if you're able to join us. And if you have any friends who might be interested in figure drawing, please send them the link. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So we have to sign up for that, right?
You are already in, Naomi. So since you're in the group,
I can show up.
Yeah, you just have to show up.
So you're going to change the name of the group? We're going to change from elements to figure?
Nope. So the only difference will be whenever we're posting our homework every day, there's going to be a new topic. So instead of saying the topic I'm posting to is the elements of art, there's going to be a new topic that will say figure drawing. That's the only difference. So hopefully that'll make it simpler instead of having to worry about joining a new group or anything. Once you're in, I'm going to be continuing to do a new drawing challenge every month, every Tuesday for the rest of this year for sure. And
that'll be nice.
Yeah.
I'll see you all in October.
Okay.
Hasta la vista, baby.
We'll have a nice trip.
Thank you, Linda.
We'll see you Tuesday then.
Safe travels. Well, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful evening. I'll see y'all in the group.
Okay, see ya. Bye.